Charlie Hill was an influential comedian from the 70s. Born in 1951, passed away in 2013, and was from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin.
I grew up in the Oneida Indian Reservation in Wisconsin.
Ever since he was a kid, he always loved stand-up comedy, studying and critiquing every comedian he saw on television, and later graduating as a speech and drama major. Eventually making his first appearance on The Richard Pryor Show in 1977, he became the first Indigenous stand-up comedian to appear on national television.
Pilgrims came to this land 400 years ago as illegal aliens.
Using comedy, he was able to raise awareness for societal issues, break down racial barriers, and help heal many from past trauma. How did he do this? Firstly, he raised awareness for societal issues by constantly pointing them out in his stand-up routines.
People don't realize that some of these dances are religious expressions for Native people.
He was inspired to do this after frequently watching Dick Gregory perform on television as he was growing up. Of all the comedians he saw on TV as a kid, Dick Gregory was his favorite because of how he used his platform to speak out against racism. This inspired Hill to become not just a comedian, but a comedian activist. So he focused on educating audiences about the discrimination against Indigenous peoples. He frequently parodied the general public's minimizing attitudes of the impacts of colonization.
My people are from Wisconsin. We used to be from New York. We had a little real estate problem.
Also, he was the first Indigenous comedian to perform on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, which was a show whose audience was mainly only interested in being entertained and seldom discussed societal issues, which was why his performance was so effective in reaching out to the general public. Furthermore, Charlie Hill broke down racial barriers, defying and disproving many unfair stereotypes. For example, one unfair stereotype that he even mentioned in his stand-up on occasion was that Indigenous peoples didn't have a sense of humor, or they were always sad. Hill's playful and hilarious personality, which he always displayed on television, was fresh for his time.
Like for so long, you probably thought that Indians never had a sense of humor, you know? We never thought you were too funny either.
Another unfair stereotype of Indigenous peoples is that they are passive and submissive. Hill disproved this by passionately firing back at his oppressors, a common target being the white man, making jokes of his own about them. Hill was the opposite of a pushover who let others bully him. It is clear that Hill's comedy was novel for its time because he was himself and didn't let anyone change that.
But we're fighting hundreds of years of stereotypes just by the very act that we're up here.
He was often offered movie roles where he would have played characters that promoted harmful stereotypes of Indigenous peoples, and whenever he turned them down. Although Hill was offered tons of money, he still knew that if he had accepted, he wouldn't have been able to live with himself, so he never became a sellout. Additionally, Charlie Hill used comedy to help heal himself and others from past trauma. As he once said, "I feel strongly that laughter is one of the ultimate forms of quick healing." In the community he grew up in, there were lots of alcohol and drug problems, which stemmed from a dopamine craving. Hill's goal was to replace the dopamine hits of drugs and alcohol with the dopamine hits of laughter. From a young age, Hill realized that humor could create a sense of connection and community in conversation. Instead of letting his emotions boil in his mind, he shared them with an audience, and this felt good for anyone in the audience who felt they could relate to them. Many Indigenous peoples felt empowered when watching his comedy because of how he made fun of oppressors and showed that it's okay to feel angry about them.
Here, drink this, sign this, move here, you know what I mean?
Sharing his feelings with the audience made everyone feel better.
And so we get people to laugh with us instead of at us. And
To some, Charlie Hill had a significant impact on the world of comedy over his career that lasted over 30 years because of his subject matter he talked about and the fact he was the first Indigenous stand-up comedian to appear on national television. He helped raise awareness for problems in society, defied racial stereotypes, and helped heal others from past trauma. Certainly, his legacy will live on for a long time.
Thank you. Good night.